was just a housekeeper. I scrubbed their floors, folded their linens, and kept my eyes lowered like a good girl's supposed to. But every now and then, when Mrs. Susan wasn't looking, I let myself glance at him, Mr. Anthony. And sometimes he looked back. I knew it was wrong. I told myself he was just being polite. But when she left for that week-long church retreat, and he asked me to stay late that night, well, that's when everything happened. Thanks for stopping by. If you like interesting infidelity stories, please subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories like this. My name is Anna. I was just a housekeeper. Yes, until that night. That's what I told myself every morning as I pulled my hair back, slipped into my faded polo, and drove the 6 miles of dirt road out to the Hawthorne place. I was just there to scrub toilets, change sheets, mop floors, and keep my mouth shut. That's all. But sometimes, when I was wiping down the big kitchen island or shaking out the rugs on the back porch, I'd catch him watching me, Anthony. Mr. Hawthorne to most folks. To me, just Anthony in my head, though I never dared say it out loud. He was a tall, quiet kind of man. Clean-shaven, strong hands, always wore flannel even in the summer. There was something old-fashioned about him. He didn't talk much, but when he did, he looked you straight in the eye, and it made you feel like you were the only one in the room. His wife Susan was the one who hired me 2 years back. She liked things just so, hospital-cornered beds, lemon oil on the banisters, towels folded in thirds, never halves. I was 23 then, fresh outta a bad relationship and needing work. Susan gave me structure. She gave me rules. But Anthony, well, he gave me something else. Something I wasn't supposed to want. It started real small. A brush of his shoulder as we passed in the hallway. The way he'd say, "Good morning, Anna," slow and deliberate like the words tasted good to him. Once, I dropped a glass and it shattered across the tile. I scrambled to clean it, panicked, but he crouched down beside me and helped. Our hands touched. Just a second. But it stuck with me for weeks. I told myself it was nothing. That he was just being polite. That I was reading into things because I was young and lonely. But then came that Thursday. Susan was sitting at the kitchen table sipping her green tea and flipping through her Bible when she told me she'd be heading to some kind of women's retreat in the mountains. 5 nights, she said. Back Monday. I nodded like it was no big deal. But my heart started thudding. I need you to keep up the routine while I'm gone, she went on, without looking up. Anthony's hopeless when I'm not here. He'll forget to eat if I don't remind him. I smiled politely. Of course, ma'am. I'll take care of things. She gave me one of those tight-lipped looks. And Anna? Yes. Keep your boundaries. You're a smart girl. I know you are. I didn't know what to say to that. Just nodded and went back to wiping the counter. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my little apartment above the gas station, staring at the ceiling fan and thinking about what she meant. Keep your boundaries. Like she saw something in me I didn't want her to see. Friday morning came, and with it, silence. Susan left early, her big Cadillac crunching down the gravel drive while the sky was still pink. I showed up a little after 8. Anthony was already out in the barn, working on that old tractor that hadn't run in years. I went about my chores like always, dusting the baseboards, washing the windows, airing out the guest rooms. But my ears were tuned to every creak in the house, every footstep. I was on edge, and I knew exactly why. He came in around lunchtime, grease on his hands and shirt sticking to his back from the heat. You want some lemonade? He asked, surprising me in the kitchen. I jumped a little. Oh, sure. Thank you. He poured us both a glass and leaned against the counter, watching me sip. His eyes were this strange shade of blue-gray, like lake water when a storm's coming in. You doing all right? He asked. I nodded. Just keeping things tidy. He gave a half smile. You always do. Then he went upstairs, and I stood there alone in the kitchen, heart racing like I'd run a mile. The days passed slow, and each one built the tension like a kettle on a low boil. He was never improper. Not once. But it was the way he lingered in the same room as me. The way he started offering me little things, a cup of coffee, a fresh biscuit he'd baked himself. He said he liked baking. Said Susan didn't eat sweets, but he still made them out of habit. You can take Em home, if you want, he told me one afternoon, pushing a plate of shortbread across the table. I shook my head. They're better warm. He smiled at that. They are. By Sunday night, it was like we were circling something neither of us had the words to name. Just heat and silence and the smell of rain in the air. I went to leave around 6, same as always, but the clouds were rolling in thick and dark. Anthony stood on the porch and looked at the sky. Might be safer if you stayed a bit, he said. Storm's looking bad. I hesitated. I could just head out now. Beat it, maybe? He shook his head. You'll get caught in it. I don't like the idea of you driving alone through those back roads in this. I stared down at my hands. You want me to stay? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Then he said, soft and sure, yeah, I do. Old V left. I knew at the moment the words left his mouth. Yeah, I do. That was the line. The quiet crossing. But I just stood there on the porch, watching the storm roll in like I had nowhere better to be. Like it was natural for a housekeeper to linger in her master's home after dark, with his wife miles away. He opened the screen door and nodded for me to come back in. I'll heat up some dinner. You like stew? I followed him in without a word. The air inside was thick, humid from the storm, warm from the slow cooker he'd apparently been tending. The smell hit me first, beef, carrots, thyme, maybe a little red wine. It was better than anything I'd eaten in weeks. I didn't know you cooked, I said, slipping off my shoes. I don't, usually, he said, stirring the pot. But I like the way the house smells when I do. Makes it feel less empty. He grabbed 2 bowls and served us like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. We sat across from each other at the big oak table, the wind picking up outside, rain starting to tap at the windows. I always thought this place must feel too big with just the 2 of you, I said, spooning stew into my mouth. It does, he said, not looking at me. Especially now. I didn't ask what he meant. I just ate slow and quiet, trying not to make noise with my spoon. When we finished, he stood and cleared the dishes. I moved to help, but he waved me off. You're off the clock, he said, smiling. That made my chest thump. Off the clock. So what was I now? He rinsed the bowls, wiped down the counter, and poured us each a glass of wine. Red, deep and dark. I held mine like it was something fragile. Hope this is okay, he said, leaning against the counter again. It's the only bottle Susan don't have labeled. I took a sip. It burned sweet. We stood there, drinking, listening to the rain rattle on the tin roof. The lights flickered once, then again. You sure it's all right I stayed? I asked, softer now. He looked at me, really looked. I would not have asked if it wasn't. There was something about the way he said it. Steady. Full of something I didn't have a name for yet. I could sleep in the guest room, I offered. Just till the storm passes. He nodded. If that makes you comfortable. I swallowed. Does it make you uncomfortable? A beat of silence. Then he said, no. But I don't want you feeling like you have to ask permission. I didn't know what to say to that. So I drank the rest of my wine. We moved to the living room, him in his favorite worn chair, me curled up on the edge of the couch like I was trying not to take up space. He put on a record, something old and slow, a woman's voice drifting through the speakers like smoke. He glanced at me now and then, like he was studying my face. Or maybe just waiting for me to say something I wasn't sure how to say. I finally spoke. Your wife said something before she left. He looked over. Yeah? She told me to keep my boundaries. His mouth twitched, like he didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. Susan's always known more than she lets on. I bit my lip. What do you think she meant? He turned his face toward the fireplace, though there was no fire. Just empty logs and ash. Maybe she's seen the way I look at you. My throat dried up. He didn't glance back at me. Just kept speaking, slow and even. I didn't mean for it to happen. But you're here every day, and you move through this house like it belongs to you more than it ever has to either of us. You bring it to life. And I noticed. I noticed too much. I didn't breathe. Couldn't. I told myself to stop. He went on. But you'd smile at me, or hum while you were dusting, or tuck your hair behind your ear, and it felt like I was watching something real for the first time in years. I stood then. My heart was hammering. Not from fear, but from recognition. From knowing I wasn't alone in this. I crossed to the fireplace, stood beside him. "You're not wearing your ring," I said quietly. He looked down at his hand like he hadn't noticed. She took it. Said it was hers. Part of the marriage deal. "You two fight." He nodded once. "Lately, a lot. But she don't like people knowing that." I turned toward him. The lights flickered again, and for a second, I couldn't see his face, just the outline, shadowed and soft. "I thought I was imagining it," I whispered. "What?" "The way you look at me." He reached up, slow as ever, and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers grazed my cheek. "You weren't." I didn't move. Didn't pull away. Didn't ask what this meant, or what would happen come morning. All I said was, "Do you want me to go?" And he answered, "No. I want you to stay." Then his hand moved to my jaw, and he kissed me. Not fast. Not rough. Just steady, sure, like he'd been thinking about it for years. And God help me, I kissed him back. The storm wailed outside, but the only thing I could hear was the beat of my own blood. We stood there for what felt like forever. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "We can stop if you want to. Just say the word." I didn't say a word. I just took his hand and led him down the hall. It wasn't supposed to happen. That's the thought that kept brushing the edge of my mind, even as I walked down that long hallway with Anthony's hand in mine. The air in the house felt heavy, like it knew what we were doing. Like it wanted to hush us, hold its breath for us. The thunder rolled low outside, and every time lightning flashed through the windows, it lit up the pictures along the hallway wall. Wedding photos. Family smiles frozen in time. I didn't look at them too long. He opened the bedroom door like it was sacred. Like he was waiting to see if I'd stop him. I didn't. The room smelled like lavender and wood polish. I knew it better than I knew my own. I'd made this bed every Thursday morning for 2 years, smoothing the duvet, fluffing the pillows, folding Susan's nightgown over the edge. Now, I was standing in it barefoot, my heart rattling like a jar of coins. He turned to face me, and for a second, neither of us spoke. I started, but my voice caught. He stepped closer. "Never what?" "Been with a married man." He didn't blink. Just said, soft, "Then let me be the first mistake you don't regret." That did something to me. I reached for him. My hands found his shirt buttons, slow and trembling. He let me undress him like he was giving me something delicate, something breakable. And maybe he was. His chest was broad and tanned, a little scar near his ribs that I traced with a finger. "How'd you get this?" "Fell off the barn roof when I was 19. You don't seem like the reckless type." He smiled. "Guess we're both proving ourselves wrong tonight." I laughed. Nervous, breathless. It felt good to smile, even if the world outside was crashing down. He touched my face like he was still trying to believe I was real. "You sure?" he asked, one last time. I nodded. "I want this. I want you." And that was all he needed. He kissed me again, slower this time, more certain. Like we had all the time in the world. His hands explored me with the kind of patience that made my skin feel like it had never been touched before. He undressed me piece by piece, and I didn't feel ashamed. I felt seen. When we finally laid down, the bed groaned beneath us. I thought of how I used to tuck the corners in tight, how I'd smoothed out every wrinkle, never knowing I'd one day be tangled in these same sheets, gasping his name into the same pillows. There was no rush to him. No roughness. Just heat and breath and the kind of quiet that speaks louder than words. He looked at me like I was something holy. Like I hadn't just mopped this floor yesterday on my hands and knees, cursing the dust and dreaming of his hands. I remember the way his voice dropped when he whispered, "You're beautiful," and I believed him. I'd never felt beautiful before. Not in that way. Not in a way that made my whole body ache. After we lay tangled in the mess we'd made, our clothes scattered across the carpet, the storm still grumbling outside. His arm was draped over my waist, his breath warm against my neck. I stared up at the ceiling fan turning slowly overhead, the same one I used to dust with a rag tied to a broom handle. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. I don't know what it changes, he finally said. But I know I don't want to pretend anymore. I turned to look at him. His eyes were softer now, tired and raw. Is your marriage really over? He hesitated. It's been over. We've just been too polite to admit it. I nodded. So, what does that make me? The polite ending or the impolite beginning? He reached for my hand. It makes you real. And it makes this, whatever it is, honest. We lay like that for a long while, not saying much. Just skin to skin, breath to breath. It felt like we'd stepped out of time, out of the rules that bound the rest of the world. But time has a way of creeping back in. Somewhere in the night, I heard a clock chime downstairs. It made me think of Susan, of her suitcase zipped up tight, of her lipstick on the bathroom counter, of the neat calendar pinned to the fridge with her return date circled in red ink. I sat up. What is it? Anthony asked. I should go. He looked confused. It's the middle of the night. I know. But I can't wake up in her bed, Anthony. Not when she's coming back tomorrow. He sat up beside me, ran a hand through his hair. Then stay in mine. The guest room. Whatever makes this feel right. I shook my head. It's not about rooms. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Do you regret it? I looked at him. No, I said. But I don't know what to do with it yet. He nodded slowly, like he understood. I'll walk you out. We got dressed in silence. I picked up my shoes, carried them in my hand. At the door, he opened the screen for me like he always did. The rain had stopped. The air smelled like earth and wetwood. As I stepped onto the porch, he reached out and took my hand one last time. Thank you, he said. I smiled, even though my throat was tight. For what? For being brave enough to stay. Even just for a night. I didn't say anything, just squeezed his hand once and walked out into the dark, barefoot in the mud, heart thudding in a way that told me nothing was going to be the same ever again. The sun was already up by the time I got back to my place. The sky was pale and quiet, like it had no memory of the storm that tore through the night before. But I remembered. I remembered everything. The smell of Anthony's skin. The way he whispered my name. The sound of the rain as we moved together like we were the only two people left on earth. The look in his eyes when I left. I stepped into my apartment, kicked off my muddy shoes, and stood in the middle of the kitchen like a stranger. Everything felt off. Smaller somehow. The air felt thinner. Like I'd brought something heavy back with me and didn't know where to set it down. I ran a bath. Sat in the water till it went cold. Didn't even bother washing my hair. Just stared at the cracked tile on the wall and tried to remember who I was before last night. Because I wasn't just the housekeeper anymore. And I wasn't just a girl with a crush. I was the woman who'd slept in her employer's bed. The one who crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. And I had no idea what came next. Monday came like any other, clear skies, cooler breeze, birds chirping out back like the world hadn't shifted. I was at the Hawthorne place by 8:30, same as always. The gravel crunched under my tires just like it had every week. The porch steps still squeaked in the same place. But the door didn't feel the same. I stood there with my hand on the knob for a second too long, wondering what face I was supposed to wear. What voice I was supposed to use. Anthony opened it before I could knock. He didn't smile, not right away. Just looked at me like he'd been standing there waiting. Like maybe he hadn't slept. Morning, I said, pretending I was just there to clean the sinks. Hey, he said quietly, stepping aside to let me in. We didn't hug. Didn't touch. Just stood there in that charged silence, two people pretending it was a normal day. Susan was back. I saw her suitcase by the stairs, zipped and dusty from travel. Her voice floated in from the back porch, on the phone with someone, all cheery and sharp like always, talking about how lovely the mountains were, how refreshing it was to get away, how nice it would be to get things back in order. I busied myself in the kitchen, scrubbing a spotless sink, wiping down the counters twice, anything to keep from thinking too hard. Anthony stood in the doorway for a while, just watching. Finally, I said, "Did you tell her?" He shook his head. "No." I nodded. "You gonna?" He leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "I don't know. I should. I will. But not yet. I didn't say what I was thinking. Then what was it for? Instead, I asked, so what now? He sighed. I don't have a clean answer for that, Anna. I turned to face him. I'm not looking for a fairy tale. I just need to know if this meant something. It did, he said, firm. More than you probably know. But not enough to change anything, I whispered. He stepped forward. That's not fair. I shook my head. No. What's not fair is asking me to pretend like nothing happened. I can't scrub this out like it's a stain on the counter, Anthony. I felt something. And I think you did too. He looked down, jaw clenched. I did. I do. Susan's voice drifted back in, calling for him. He turned toward it, then back to me. I need time, he said. And I need peace, I answered. We stood like. Anna. I turned. I don't regret it, he said. Neither did I. But that wasn't the same as being able to live with it. I didn't quit that day. I just didn't go back. I left a note in the mailbox, polite, professional. Said thank you for the opportunity. Said I needed a change of scenery. I kept it simple. But the truth was, I couldn't be the girl who came in and mopped the floors like she hadn't moaned his name into his wife's pillow. I couldn't be the ghost of a mistake they'd both try to forget. So I left. Found work in a little bakery in town. Early mornings, flour in my hair, soft music humming through the speakers. It was quiet. It was clean. It was mine. And every now and then, when the sky gets heavy and the rain starts to fall just like it did that night, I think about him. About how something so tender could also break something inside me wide open. He never called. I never expected him to. But some nights, when I'm locking up the shop and the town's gone still, I swear I can still feel his hands on my hips. Still hear his voice asking if I wanted to stay. And the truth is, I did. But sometimes love, or lust, or whatever it is that pulls two people together in the dark, it don't always survive the morning. Still, I'll always remember the way he looked at me like I was something rare. Even if it was just for one night. Have you heard or experienced similar stories? Please subscribe and tell us more in the comment section. See you in my next story.